Hey everyone, this is John Puritz. Welcome to the Man Up Already podcast. This show is dedicated to each of us being better in all areas of our lives, mentally, spiritually, physically, and relationally. We want to help you be a better you because when you man up already, the world around you is greatly impacted. Here on the podcast, we don't believe you're an accident. We believe each of us is created for purpose, and this show is dedicated to helping you discover and live out that purpose. Again, welcome to the show, and let's check out another great episode. Hey, welcome to the Man Up Already podcast. Super excited to have you here, and I'm looking forward to a great first show of 2026 and a new season, and more importantly, kind of a new focus, direction, however you want to look at it. We are really dialing in on our focus here on the podcast and just the messaging and the guests that we're going to have on tackling really what it means to be in biblical masculinity, to stand firm in your biblical manhood and how to be a better man based on the principles that have been laid out since really the beginning of time that are, I feel, under attack more than ever. And we are going to really focus in and spend time every week, every 2 weeks, whatever it is, on tackling this issue to help you be a better man of God. That is our focus and really where we're going to dive in. And let me be clear, right? We're going to have guests that talk about a variety of topics, but I just want to make sure we're clear in our focus, where we're going, where we're headed, and just helping us be well-rounded and just better. Okay. So I want to talk in our first episode of 2026, hard to believe. I want to spend some time talking about just what's going on in this idea of biblical masculinity in general, things that I've seen, some concerns, and just draw some attention to why I think this is such a key principle that we need to discuss in the first episode of the year. So we're living in a time, guys, where masculinity is either mocked, it's feared, it's completely misunderstood, and a time where it's being reshaped. The problem isn't masculinity. The problem is masculinity without God. There is a spiritual battle happening, and it's happening behind the scenes, and it's ramping up in this modern online culture. Okay. So this isn't about going backward. This is about returning to the things that actually work. So today we're going to talk about biblical masculinity. What is it? We're not going to talk about cultural masculinity or toxic masculinity. That's not what it's not. And we're not going to talk about passive masculinity. We're going to talk about biblical masculinity. And the challenge is that society is confused about what a man is supposed to be. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this today is, this happened either yesterday or the day before. I'm watching, I don't know if it was HBO or Amazon, but there was a commercial I wasn't on, it was on regular television. And it was a Swiffer commercial. And the commercial had the man. So the man is talking about how great the Swiffer mop is. And he's dressed in a flannel, in sweatpants. He's not wearing shoes. He's in socks. He's basically dressed passively. He's definitely not on purpose. He's not dressed for success. They have him portrayed as frumpy. And I was just thinking, and he's selling a mop. And I just was thinking, is this because how many people saw that? And that's my point, right? Like, don't get me wrong. This is not about men who stay home and the wife works. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the image that that was conveyed in that commercial to the masses about what masculinity is. And I have a problem with that because that's not a man on purpose. That's not a man out there in action. That's the entire image was off. So we are confused as a society. We also are seeing the rise of cultural femininity and the attack on biblical masculinity. Men are told today, be strong, but are not too strong, okay? Lead, but don't offend. Be present, but stay silent. And scary, more scary than that is speaking up will be met with confrontation. When this happens over and over, what happens to a man is he goes silent because the messaging to him is he's got to protect. If I speak up, I'm going to be attacked. And a man will always protect his peace however he can. After a while, a man will take action to protect his peace because peace is vital to manhood. So a core issue, right, is masculinity has been detached from responsibility, separated from God, and reduced to either dominance on one spectrum or passivity on the other. And both of those spectrums are not good. That's not where a grounded man lies, which is in the middle. When masculinity is removed, something doesn't become better, it becomes unstable. So biblical masculinity is not, these extremes. It's not domination. It's not control. It's not anger. It's not ego-driven leadership, but it's also not passivity, which is being absent or being silent and abdicating responsibility. Biblical masculinity is not about power over people. It's about responsibility, number one, before God, and then living our lives under that alignment, right? We answer a biblical man, a man rooted in biblical masculinity, is always understands that God is watching, that he's acting in principle. And if he leans toward dominance or passivity, either one, something's off somewhere. For me, it's very easy to see a man in crisis because he's somewhere in those spectrums. But a man grounded, again, lies in the middle. So what is biblical masculinity? Well, number one, like we talked about, is responsibility. Biblical masculinity starts with ownership. I love the example I'll use in the Old Testament is Job, right? So if you know the story of Job, Job was living right and everything gets taken from him. And he's sitting there, right? Everything. He's lost his family. He's lost everything. He didn't lose his wife. And she attacks him. His friends attack him. And he's kind of in this, oh, woe is me, I shouldn't have been born moment. But he's also not cursing God. But his view is I shouldn't have not being born would have been better than this. And his friends then attack him and he's defending himself and he's just kind of crying out, and God shows up and God really says, you're not me. You don't know what I know. You weren't there when I created the world. Who are you? And to think you understand what it is to be God. And responsibility is at the end of the book, Job goes, you're right. I know nothing. Like he just is like, I'm not you. And I admit that. I'm taking responsibility for where I'm at. But he never chastised God. He never cursed God. He never made his circumstance higher than his God. He took responsibility. Okay, a biblical man will take responsibility. He understands that blame is not the answer, responsibility is, because in responsibility we find strength. Now I can move into action. I can do something about where I'm at. And it's, the other thing about biblical masculinity is its strength under control. If you look at Jesus, right, he was strong, he was assertive, okay, but he was also kind. Now, a lot of times we'll use the word gentle. Jesus was kind, and kindness doesn't require aggression. If you're kind in your heart, then you speak peace. You can be strong, you can be assertive, but you don't have to be aggressive. You definitely don't, right? You're not toxic. So Jesus was kindness incarnate, okay? Strength doesn't have to be loud, but it is disciplined. And often A disciplined man is probably a more quiet man, not silent, but definitely the strongest man in the room, in my opinion, is the one who doesn't speak much, but observes and only speaks when necessary. That to me is when you know you're dealing with a very strong man, because he speaks when he needs to, not just to hear himself talk, right? Proverbs 16:32 says, better a patient man than a warrior, a man who controls his temper than one who takes a city, right? I mean, that's strength under control, okay? That is an example of biblical masculinity. A next trait of a biblical male is servant leadership. Okay, Mark 10:45 says the Son of Man did not come to serve, to be served, but to serve. Leadership is service. And a grounded man, a biblical man, a spiritual man wants to serve his family. He wants to serve his spouse. He wants to serve his community, right? He wants to make a difference. He wants to have purpose. All of those things are about serving. Okay, true leadership is service, but service doesn't mean meek. Service doesn't mean slavery, right? Service doesn't mean abdication. Leadership is about pouring into others, and it takes a very strong man, a strong person to lead. Now, again, I'm not talking about women leaders and all of that women can be great leaders, but we're talking about masculinity and how it has been deformed in our society today. Okay. The other thing is authority, and authority is, again, being a steward, right? Leadership, again, is stewarding, serving, right? Helping others. Another core principle of biblical masculinity is protection and provision. In my new book, I write that I talk to men about you're not a role, okay? You're not provider and protector, but provision and protection is a mandate in manhood, okay? It's innate, it's wired into us, okay? We protect and provide emotional security, spiritual security, physical security. Our presence matters way more than being perfect. Because I think being humble and showing that I know how, I want to grow, I want to get better, here are my flaws, but I'm working on them, shows strength versus denial, anger, victimhood, all of those things. A man grounded in his presence is often the safety that the world around him needs, right? What his family needs, what his friends needs, what his work environment needs. A man grounded in his presence. Sorry. So why do I feel society needs this today? Well, look at the lack of fathers today, or the impact that lack of fatherhood is having. We have identity confusion, big time. We have weak leadership, lack of boundaries. But when a man is present, when he's grounded, and when he's in his purpose, we have more stable families, we have healthier marriages, we have stronger churches, and we have grounded children, right? Like a man standing in his groundedness, affecting the world around him. He's involved with his children. He's looking at what's happening. What are they consuming? Where are they spending their time? Who are they spending their time with? Online and offline. Okay. He's present. I think it's huge. Okay. But we also, here's a really interesting quote. Strong men create safe spaces. Weak men create chaos. And that is very, very, very true. So let's talk a little bit about the pushback that we're seeing. Okay. We see biblical masculinity labeled often as outdated, dangerous, and oppressive. And that is so not true. Okay. It has maybe been tainted and taken again to those extremes of abusive or passive, but or aggressive. But that is as far from the truth. Abuse of masculinity, right? That when we're abusing it, that's not biblical masculinity. And if you want a clear example of what a bit grounded man is Christ, right? Because Jesus just exemplified it. Again, strong, grounded, kind, right? Still assertive, but not arrogant. I mean, he is the reason why I dedicated my life all those years ago to following him, because of the example that I saw. Okay, so the question would be, if Jesus was walking today, right, would he fit in a modern political category? And the answer is no way, not at all. So here's kind of a call or a direct challenge to you men out there. Number one, stop waiting for permission. I can identify with this. I was waiting for permission for so long. I was waiting for something to be bestowed, right? You're now ready. Stop waiting for permission. Stop asking for permission. Follow your gut and move forward, because as you'll learn in upcoming episodes, right, action is always the thing to take. You learn in action. You find your purpose in action. Stop hiding behind modern culture. Stop it. There's nothing good will come from there. Okay, your purpose is not in flannel sweatpants and selling a mop. Okay, now maybe you're a stay-at-home dad. That's fine, but I know you're the leader there. I know you're doing all that you can do, right, to be there, but be an example of what a leader is, not what society and culturally they're portraying it should be. And stop outsourcing your responsibility. It's nobody else's responsibility. It's your responsibility. Take ownership of that. But I would ask you, okay, where do you think you've been passive? And where have you been avoiding responsibility? And in your heart, in your gut, where do you feel God is really calling you to lead? And I know sometimes these are hard conversations. Sometimes these are questions and conversations that kind of shake up the status quo in your home, outside of your home, but that's okay, because something great can get created out of all of that. And you've got to be on purpose. Okay. So I encourage you, right? It's not about being perfect. It's just being in alignment. Get clear on who you are called to be. What is your purpose? And stand in that and start taking action in that. Biblical masculinity doesn't make men dangerous. It makes them stable, it makes them strong, and it makes them dependable. And our families need that, our communities need that, our world needs that. So if you've enjoyed this conversation today, all right, number one, I invite you to reflect on what we talked about, but two, share the episode, send it to a guy, right? Send it to a man, send it to a friend, right? Let's get men to start thinking about the idea of being rooted, grounded in faith, and stepping out there and being bold, right? And making changes. And if you're not already, subscribe, follow, right? Get involved. We got great things coming up this year. We're launching unbelievable things, an online men's ministry, and all kinds of stuff are happening this year. We're super pumped, but let's get serious about who we as men are called to be and what our purpose is out there to make a difference and to make a difference in the kingdom. Hey, thanks so much for being here. Thanks so much for checking it out. And we'll talk to you soon. See you on the next episode.